I got a really interesting subject for you at this point. Heard me talk about historical periods in the past, historical events, legendary cities of the past, and my questions revolve around the premise that perhaps the body of world history that we're becoming familiar with, as an industry that we're all getting educated in. They put it into all the schools. I believe it may be fundamentally flawed, and that might be by design. So this is a conspiracy theory. And it could be a major one. It could be as major as some of the religious conspiracies that people have feared. And I want to use the word fear. I fear this because, not that I'm going around afraid, paranoid, I just fear that this is the thing that keeps people down and keeps them misinformed, disinformed, completely hypnotized by something that is not good for humanity overall. It's not good for the true potential that we have. And why does it tie in with the religious conspiracies? Basically because it may have been the church and some of the other religious factions that have created this entire situation. If the history or the historical record has been flawed, if it's been purposely compromised, if there is some kind of modus operandi to keep us from not knowing where we are in the scheme of things, then the whole chronology of the Bible that Christian fundamentalists try to use is indeed fundamentally wrong. It's fundamentally, basically impossible to determine anything from using the dating system in the Bible. The dating, the chronology of events, the prophetic use of terms, of timing. Take, for example, whenever you read in the Bible the 1,000-year period, what does that mean? What is the significance of 1,000 years? As far as I'm concerned, as an amateur astronomer, that I've loved the science for many decades now, and there I go using the term. A decade is basically 1,000 years is derived as a derivative figure of the 10-year period. And for all these years, me going through all the timing in the planets, there's nothing that follows a 1,000-year cycle. You can't even make combinations of things that comes up with a 1,000-year cycle. There's no significance in a 1,000-year cycle. So if you say one day of God is 1,000 years, that's meaningless. They are just using the term, if they're purposely using it, to denote or connote, it's a connotation of a long time, a long period of time. Even the Mayans had much more exact formulas and reasons for using their cycles that they used. Cycles that are not measured by 1,000 years, they're not measured by 10 years. In fact, they're not even really measured by a year of the 365 days. 365 and 1/4, adding up to 4 when we get the leap year. But if you really think about how history was written down to what we know of today, it was basically being compiled as a business. People were making money on it. And they were inheriting something that came from basically scribes and monks that did this because they had nothing else to do. They didn't have TV, they didn't have phones, they didn't have internet. They spent all their lives recording this information, writing it by hand, and then trying to make sure that everybody was on the same page. They had councils where they would kill everyone who had a different belief system or a different chronology, a different story of what happened first and when it happened, and then the next things that happened. If it didn't agree, and if it wasn't on the same page as what the controllers wanted, then they would just erase those people. And they would erase their books, basically just by destroying it. And if they destroyed the people and they destroyed their records of things, it was erased from the record that we have today. So there may be a vast conspiracy that originates in a time when they knew it would be very important to control known history, or the knowledge of what is history. They found it would be very important to control the calendar. They found it very important to control what mankind would believe. I give you this premise. I'm not giving any specifics per se. I'm just saying that it is an overall theory that I've made, and I really think there's something to it. I would get specific to say that I can implicate the Vatican. I can implicate perhaps the Greek Orthodox, because they have the same records that they used, created, or borrowed from the so-called Western Roman Empire. When you think about the Muslims who are interconnected, it's not a totally independent civilization, as some people like to draw the line and look at it black and white so we can hate the Muslims. No, in fact, coming from the perspective of a true, fair, global thinking about things, because I'm not racist, I'm not nationalistic, I just seek truth. Using that mindset, you take the records of all of the different cultures, all the different religious-oriented writings, and you try to correlate things, and there may be a conspiracy even going way back to that time. And I'm also going to implicate the, I don't want to say ancient Israelites, because I don't think it goes back all the way to the time of Solomon or King David, if those accounts can be taken as completely trustworthy, completely valid, completely real. I'm just saying that the Israelites of the time of the Master, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, going back even to then. Now, I am telling you that is not 2,000 years ago. To give you something very specific, the premise is this. It was a lot less time since Jesus was here in that famous story of the Bible, of the New Testament, of the Christian gospel. It was not even more than 1,500 years ago from where we are today, folks. Now, this is open a big can of worms here, and I don't have a lot of proof, but I believe the proof will be found if we're operating on this calculated, educated pretense.